we're getting it. There he is.
Hey!
Hey, how you going?
Mate, we finally got there.
I know. When you said it was a computer, I was like, it must be the computer. So pumped to have you talking with me, man. Thank you so much.
Oh man, I was thinking, am I doing something wrong? You know, the whole technical and I thought I'm a long way away. You know, Australia is a long way away. I was thinking, oh, where we at?
No, it's not that. So for everybody who's going to watch this and for joining us, I wanted to give just a quick resume for David. You had an amazing career. I just wanted to quickly give everybody a rundown for who's going to see this. You're a 6-time world champion. You're a Paralympic gold medalist. Your singles record, 632 wins, 111 losses. I hope I'm not making you embarrassed. Your doubles record, 397 wins, 89 losses. You're an International Tennis Hall of Fame inductee, as well as a Australian Tennis Hall of Fame inductee. You've had an unbelievable career, man. So I just wanted to say, you know, you're a huge inspiration. I used to see you around Melbourne Park when I was a kid training there, and never came up and said hello. I was a little bit intimidated, to be honest, but I grew up training at that tennis centre, so I used to see you in there on the indoors at Melbourne Park.
Oh, cool.
Yes, probably 2002. So you were definitely world number one at the time.
Yeah, I was just thinking what era that would have been. That was probably, yeah, because I retired at the end of 2005. So, gosh, mate, yeah, I would have been 32 back then.
That's how old I am now. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Come full circle.
Yeah, come full circle. But it was that was the first time that I think I'd ever seen anyone play wheelchair tennis. And so you were the first person that I'd ever seen play wheelchair tennis. And I was so surprised with how clean you struck the ball and how well you moved over the court. So I just wanted to, I guess I got so many questions, so I wanted to get right into it. The first one that I had for you was like, I wanted to get into your tennis background and growing up in Australia and sort of the background of how you started with tennis.
Well, I'd say 11, 12 years old when my best friend Brownie, his mum used to play midweek ladies doubles by tennis courts.
Yeah.
And it was just, we're on school holidays, you know, lazy kind of day. We didn't know what to do. And so we just tagged along with Brownie's mum down to the courts, and we just picked up, you know, a couple of her rackets and started goofing off and balls around. And that probably, God, I'd say that lasted for about 3 years or so.
Okay.
And we would just, like, we'd copy Becker's serve and we'd copy McEnroe's serve and Brownie. Like, he knew I was a big Lendl fan.
Okay.
He would mock getting sawdust out of his pocket and and he was a big Max Verlander fan, so he would do the
Mate, come on.
Do the Vic, I think it was called.
Vic, yes.
And so, yeah, we did that for a few years and we were just goofing off. And then the owner of the tennis courts switched to a local coach, Alan McDonald. And Macca played like in Nuke's era, you know, Roach. And so we just went down to pick up the key one day from Macca, and he said, why don't you guys come over for some lessons at Tukley Tennis Club? So we did, and we joined a comp. And Macca kind of taught us the grips and the swings and all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
And so I'd say for 2 years I played like in this comp. You know, I had the semi-western topspin both sides. I'd even, you know, sneak into the net. And so I was really good, like in that comp, like just in a local. Like I was club champion at Tukley, but then as soon as I started to travel, like to Wyong, Gosford, or, you know, God forbid, come to Sydney, like it whooped. And, you know, good in my own little fish pond, but as soon as I had to travel, then, you know, the other kids were just better. So I knew the grips, knew the swings, was playing some tournaments and matches and all that kind of stuff. So that was my tennis before the accident.
Yeah, so I wanted to get into that just quickly. When did you get injured?
Well, I got injured when I was 16. So I was hitchhiking from one party to another, and yeah, was hit by a car. And so I spent the next 4 months in hospital. And then when I got out of hospital, I went to rehab, like to learn to walk with the prosthetics.
Yep.
Um, and I didn't really, like, I hadn't heard of wheelchair sport. Like, I didn't know that sport was even an option.
An option, yeah.
But at that time, I was just focused on getting back to, because I'd been working, I'd left school before the accident and was working as a clerk within the government. And so I thought that was my main goal, kind of transition back into society, get back to work,
Yep.
so with my friends. And I was like, when I got out of hospital, I was 17, so I was still, very young.
Yep.
And then, like, it was kind of funny how it happened. There was a local newspaper called The Express up at like Gosford, Wyong area. It was called The Express Advocate. And there was an article about a guy in a wheelchair playing tennis.
Okay.
And I was like, man, come on, you got to be kidding.
That's what you want.
And he was a guy that lived at Charmhaven that was, like, he was a panel beater and he worked on cars.
Okay.
Like, incredible guy.
Yeah.
But sporty and had, played wheelchair tennis. So I rang him up, like, told him my situation. Played tennis as a kid, had an accident, and he said, meet me at the courts on Saturday. So I did, man, and I sprayed balls everywhere. Back fence, dogs were running for cover.
Yeah.
But I think the feeling of the ball on the strings kind of brought back all those goofy memories with Brownie.
Yep.
Like fun and all that kind of stuff. And so that was really the beginning of the wheelchair tennis journey.
Yeah, I mean it's an amazing story. Hey, like getting through that adversity must have been so hard. How did you push through that and get motivated to set goals again with basically a totally new sport?
I think I think it helped being sporty as a kid because I also ran track and field, played soccer, along with the tennis.
Yep.
And so I think it was helpful to get that because obviously you're still 17, so I've still got a bundle of energy.
Yes.
I've got hormones still kind of raging around, and so I was trying to channel all that as well as any negative kind of anger that I had from what was happening to me. And so once I was able to funnel all that into tennis, like it was something that I could kind of really sink my teeth into. And the guy that I hit with, Terry, great guy, he looked exactly like Fabio from the romance novels.
With the long hair.
Yeah, man, he had the long hair, he had the Hamilton suntan, he had the muscles on his muscles. And he was to me, he was kind of inspirational. Like,
yeah,
he had the red sports wheelchair that was zooming around. I was in the old hospital clunker. So I think that's like I wanted to be like Terry.
Yep.
And then the whole social thing took over. Like I went to my first tournament on the Victorian border. You might know it, the grass courts at Wodonga.
Aubrey Wodonga, yeah.
Yeah, the tennis club.
Yep.
I had a couple of concrete courts there, and that's where I met Mick Connell, Danny DeToro, world-class players. And so that to me was kind of, oh man, Mick Connell at the time was number 2 in the world. So like watching him was like, oh man, I'd like to, get to that level. So I was kind of slowly working my way back into society, not only through work and my friends, but also now I had that other option of tennis.
Yes. Yeah. What were some of the initial challenges playing the game that you found when you got it on the court for the first time?
I think it was just the movement.
Yeah.
You know, it was difficult because, like, I guess as a kid, like an able-bodied, like 14, 15, like I'm taking these big swings, like these
Yep.
big the ball. And then wheelchair tennis, like you just don't really have time for that.
Yep.
Like trying to get out of the way of the ball, trying to understand how the chair works, how your body kind of fits in with the chair as well. So I think that was a real learning curve. And it was only until I think the technology of the chairs kind of caught up, like with my
Yes.
own body and what I knew I was capable of, then I started to feel like I was one with the
With
chair.
the chair, it must have been a huge change in equipment. Like with the chair, it must be huge.
Yeah, because I first started hitting like with Terry, like 88, like 1989, and the technology was moving so quick, like through those early years, 89, 90, 91. Like it was four wheels, then there was more camber, then the
Yep.
three-wheel chair came in. Uh, you know, the aluminium, like the makeup of,
Lighter chair.
yeah, it was a lot lighter. Um, and that really, I mean, not only did it help me, but it helped um, like all the players as well.
Yeah, I found. I mean, I've tried wheelchair tennis once, and I found it so hard with the racket hand. Like the racket hand is the hardest thing because you don't want to let go of the racket. It's unbelievable how you can move so well and keep the racket in your hand and grab the wheel.
Yeah, I think, yeah, and that's a big thing. You know, it's funny, like it's funny you say that because I think that is for an able-bodied person to get in the wheelchair and try to move it around. I think, yeah, that is one of, because the natural thing to do is to put the racket on your lap,
Yeah,
push, and then pick up the racket and
yeah,
try to hit. And it's funny because we had Nuke, like in the early days, like he was doing the wheelchair demos with us, and Nuke would be in a wheelchair and the ball would be hit on the other side of the court. Nuke would get up, run to the ball, and then run back and sit in the wheelchair. But once you learn that you can kind of hold the racket and then, you know, also push like with your palm,
Yep.
then that's a big, like, it's like a light goes off. And then you get to the point, like where the left hand on the wheel feels solid and stable, but you get to the point where the right hand with the racket feels just as solid,
Just a solid.
just as stable, yeah. And so, like, I think once you get to that point, then you realize, man, I can move this chair pretty quick.
Yes.
And to start to have that confidence, then, you know, swinging the ball and swinging the racket and then getting the ball in different positions. Like you learn to adapt,
Yep.
like and adjust, you know, with leaning and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, I think and it's funny, I think more, if you got in the chair more, like it would be, you'd have those little wake up calls,
Yep.
you know, along the way. So yeah, man, you should keep getting out there and trying it because I think it'll be be an interesting learning curve for you.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's an amazing sport to watch, and especially the doubles. I think the doubles wheelchair tennis is unbelievable. But yeah, like that was probably the biggest challenge. And you have a website, letsrolltennis.com, and you have instructional videos and articles on that to help people. Because my next question was going to be, what advice do you have to somebody who's thinking about getting into wheelchair tennis?
Yeah, well, Let's Roll Wheelchair Tennis is like, because when I retired, Rich Berman, my longtime coach out of Boulder, Colorado, we were just like, what are we going to do to get information out there that's helpful for, you know, young folks, or it doesn't, whatever age you are, that are just the game. What information can we get out that's accessible, that's free, so people can feel like they're getting a grip and they have some kind of rope to go from to learn the game. But also, you know, for pro players as well, like what's like the drills or other aspects of the game that you can utilize. But look, I know from my own experience, not only did I turn this into, I went from hitting with Terry and then hitting, with the local guys, Mick and other guys out of Sydney, to playing local tournaments. But that was great socially.
Yep.
As I said, to kind of move through that phase after my accident. But then I went to the Japan Open in 1990, and Randy Snow and Laurent Giamatini were playing the final, and I was sitting at the side of the court with a Kiwi guy named Ross Burgess, and he was a hilarious guy. And the guy wore moccasins on court when he played.
When he played.
Yeah, looked like Phil Collins. He was a dead ringer. And I'm sitting there with Roscoe, and we're surrounded, all the Japanese, the media, like everyone's there. They want to see Randy, number one in the world, play Laurent, number two. This is my first overseas tournament, and Randy is getting crushed. Laurent is just all over him. It's 6-1, 5-love. And everyone's thinking, oh, it's over. The match is over.
Yeah.
And Roscoe gives me an elbow, and he's like, Dave, it's not over. You watch this. And Randy clawed his way back, saving like multiple match points. Japanese are going berserk. He gets it to a tie break, second set, wins that. Laurent just collapses.
Oh.
I mean, the poor bugger. And Randy runs out the set, like 6-love. And I saw him, as he won that last point, I saw him wheel up to the net, and he just like raised his arms, and I was like, that's what I want to do. That's what I want to be like Randy. I want to be number one in the world. And that for me was like one of those light bulb moments, because he kind of took it to another level. Like,
what's possible? You saw it in the flesh.
Yeah, I saw it in the flesh. It was happening right before me, and I saw the reaction. Crowd. I saw Randy's like jubilation, and once I knew exactly what it was that I wanted to chase, then that changed the game. Like, it shifted all my focus, I'd say, for like the next 3 years, when I was able to get it, like, I didn't have to work anymore at the clerical job. I could concentrate on tennis full time, because I knew that was the only way that I was going to, start winning US Opens, Australian Opens, gold medals, get to number one. And once that was concrete, like in my brain, then I knew what path I wanted to be on.
So Jason Harnett, shout out to Jason for connecting us. He's a great guy, and he's an awesome ambassador for wheelchair tennis here. Thank you for connecting us, Jason. I know you're watching. He said that you were the pioneer in the sport for being professional. So when did that take root in your mind? Was it at that moment that you decided to dedicate everything to the sport?
Yeah, it did. Well, it's funny. I think it was on different levels. I think in the beginning, in 1990, I knew what I wanted. I just didn't quite know how to do it. And then I was professional to a level, like up until 93, and then once I started traveling full time, maybe I'd become a little bit more professional.
Yep.
But I was still on the path. It's like being on a path at night, and you don't have a flashlight, and you kind of like, you think you know where you're going, and you're just a little bit unsure. And then when I met Rich in Boulder, he was the guy that came with the flashlight, and he was the guy that shined it and said, this is the way to go. And so that was like restructuring training, like watching matches on tape, dissecting opponent. I mean, it was kind of like taking the fitness and the diet. I mean, everything just went up a level. And then when I won the US Open in 95 at the Racquet Club of Irvine, in the pit, We used to call this, Jason will know this, the pit was the center court. It was like being in a coliseum with the stands rising above it, and we were the gladiators on court, and the noise that could be generated in the pit. I watched all those finals between Randy and Laurent, like up until 95, and that was inspiring as well, because they were playing in the pit.
Yep.
But once I won that US Open for the first time, winning like motivated me even more, because winning is like addictive. And I knew once I did it once, I just kept wanting it over and over and over again. So just imagine that you're in Paris and you're in a back street and you want something to eat, and you find this cafe like amongst the, the cobblestone roads, and you go in there and you order a chocolate souffle, and only locals are in the cafe. So you think, oh, this is a good sign, like no tourists.
Yes, yes.
And then the chef brings out the chocolate souffle, and you dip your spoon into it, and you crack the hard top, and you get to the gooey, hot chocolate, and then you put it in your mouth, and you think, oh man, this is the best thing I've ever. It's like, I have to have it again. And
Gotta get that.
Yeah. That's winning. You can't get enough. You're thinking of, I'm thinking about the chocolate souffle on
all
the
the
plane.
time.
I'm thinking about it at work the next week. You can't get it out of your mind. When I won that US Open, I wanted to win the Australian Open, and then the British Open, and then the next US Open, and it just was never enough. I win it, I want to win it again, and that's what it's like. It's like an addiction that you just want. And gosh, I would say I wanted that that lasted, from 95 till I retired. So that lasted pretty much for 9.5 years. And then I realized that craving was starting to, dissipate. And then by the end of 2005, I didn't crave winning anymore.
Yep.
And that's when I thought it's time, to retire. And
that's such an interesting insight into like the addiction of winning. Like, I know there's a huge goal as winning Grand Slams, but do you think like that sort of hunger was just on a day-to-day level? Like you were saying, it's just, you're always thinking about it. You think it affected everything from the way you trained off the court to the way you slept and you prepared mentally and watched matches. Is that because the sort of intense focus every day you had on that end goal?
I would say tennis came first, second, and third. Like, and I was selfish. Like, I'll be the first to admit that, if I had a choice to make of, going to someone's party or going out on the ball machine, like that was the thing for me, was that I just wanted to dedicate, a lot of my life to tennis. And I thought like that was really the only way that I could get to those US Open finals, British Open finals, get to number one. And because I think I was so driven, you're right, it is always just percolating in the back of your brain. And so I think it's not something that you can really switch off. And to be honest, I think I didn't want to switch it off, because it was really something that was driving me.
Yeah.
And plus, it was a great lifestyle.
Yeah.
I mean, traveling all these different countries,
Yeah.
different cultures, like you're meeting these wonderful people. You're putting yourself into situations that you never think, I mean, I was, in Monte Carlo for the Laureus Awards in 2001, and you're talking to Heidi Klum and Michael Douglas. And
that's awesome.
I mean, I know, you
Yeah.
never, when I'm like 17 and just out of hospital, like you never think that you'd get into those situations and moments. But that's why, the lifestyle it was hard to give up. But as I talked about before, once that craving was gone, then I knew it was time.
Yeah. So when I posted that we were going to do a live together, one of my best mates who went to college with me, his name's Landon Hilker, he told me that his childhood coach was actually Rich Berman in Colorado. And so I went up, he sent me a photo of you guys doing an interview, and in the background is a photo of him on the wall. And I was like, that is just insane. Tennis is such a small world.
I know, man. That's like, what's that Kevin Bacon 7 degrees of
separation, right?
Separation.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then get this. There's another guy that I know that I was coaching his daughter. His name's Paul Tracy. He said he used to hit with you at Tukley.
Yes.
I was coaching his daughter over Coronado, Olivia. It's unbelievable. He said to say g'day.
Yeah, that is why. Yeah, I totally remember Paul all those years ago. And, you know, it's funny because I think in the early 90s when I went to San Diego, I did stay with Paul for a couple of nights. And
yeah.
I'm trying to think how he was connected, because on a court, because I think we'd been hitting balls on the court, and then on another court over, Phil Dent was working out his young son, Taylor.
Yep.
Dent.
I spoke to Taylor a couple of weeks ago on here.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, awesome chat. But yeah, it's just such a small world. Like tennis is crazy small.
Yeah,
but
everyone's connected.
Yeah, I just thought they wanted to make sure they said g'day while you were here.
Oh, cool.
My next question was, like, what's on the court? What separated you from your competition?
Well, to be honest, and Jason will laugh at this, I didn't have the best technique. Like my backhand was all kind of goofy, you know, with the wrist. I mean, my serve it'd be really good for a few months, and then it'd kind of go off, and then Rich and I would kind of tweak it. So, like, I never had the best technique, but I think the big thing working for me was that I had the desire. And I think once you have that internal desire, then that does go a long way. And sometimes, like, it is just about hanging in there long enough mentally, like, you know, late in the third set or something, until you can see the other guy starting to crack. And you just know that if you hang around long enough mentally, that you have a better chance of winning this match. Like, and I would say a good example of this is the 2000 Paralympics, like that 2-week period. Because I remember in '93, I was in Hilton Head, Ireland, and I just lost to Randy. I think it was in the quarterfinals. And I went to a cafe on the island, and on a table next to me was the USA Today. And on the front cover was Sydney wins 2000 Olympics. And I went, oh man, that's my chance. Like, that I've been given a gift. And I'll never get this chance again to play in a Paralympics in my own backyard.
Yeah.
And so for 7 years, that was kind of percolating, like, in the back of my brain. And so through 94, 95, like the next few years, became number one, started winning, you know, these US Opens, Australian Opens, and British, and all the other tournaments. And so by the time 2000 came around, I was number one in the world leading into those 2 weeks. Number one seed. I had all the media build up and the expectation, and I mean, everything was just massive. But for those 2 weeks, and I'll freely admit, I didn't play like my best tennis, but I got it to a level that I was able to dig out matches. And I mean, the crazy thing was, man, I had the draw from hell. Like, I had Andreas Westman, a Swede, who had taken me to 3 sets earlier in the year. Then I had Randy Snow, who was at the back end of his career, but he's still Randy Snow. Then I had Robin Amalan, who was a future world number one. Then I had Krameyer, who was a former world number one. Then I had Stevie Welsh, who had been a former world number one. Like, you'd think, you know, a hometown guy, they would have cut me some slack or something.
Nothing easy.
But I just did enough during the matches that I was able to hang around long enough, play really good tennis in spurts, hang around
Yep.
long enough for other spurts, and then just take it all down to the process. And I used to keep these notes in my tennis bag, and that might have been like something technical on the serve, or it might have been something tactical, like go more to the forehand or whatever it was,
Yep.
or it might have been something motivational for me. And I remember I used to write, "You are a warrior" on the note. And so for me, that kind of turned it into like a gladiator
Yep.
battle.
Battle. Yep.
Like, and, we talk about the pit before, because in different eras, like there were different big dogs.
Yep.
And I turned into a big dog. And in the beginning, it was Randy, Laurent. So that was like the big dogs going at it. And then it kind of turned into Stevie, Schrameyer, and then Ricky Moyer came along. And then it kind of turned into Robin Amalan, Michael Jeremias. And then towards the end, it kind of turned into Shingo Kuniita, the Japanese, who was quite young back then.
Yep.
For me, it was great because I was always, like, the eras were changing, and I was kind of the constant, like, through the eras, but I had to adapt from Randy, Laurent, to Stevie, Kai, to Ricky, Robin, and then to Shingo, which still made it interesting.
Yes.
Like, I wasn't kind of playing the same guys, year after year after year. So I think that actually probably had some kind of longevity for me as well. So yeah, that was great.
And the whole time your equipment is changing. The whole time the sport's progressing. So
yeah,
that also makes it more impressive. I wanted to go back to the Sydney Olympics because that was a question that I had for you. Your last match in the final was anything but easy. You were actually down love 2 in the third set. That's right, I think. And so you're down love 2 in the third set of your home Olympics. Like you were saying, it comes around once in a lifetime. What was going through your mind, and how did you get to the finish line in that match?
Process. That's the best way I can describe it, because you can't. It's almost like, when you can't just think of the scoreboard like I'm up or like I'm down. It's kind of there, but it's not there. It's kind of like the crowd are there, but they're really not there. Like, it's almost like you just have to go within yourself. Yeah. And for me, mentally it could be a bit tiring if you're always, because for me everything was off the serve and the return. So if I had something technical as a reminder, wouldn't matter if I was down 2 love, up 2 love, or whatever. It would just be, I think I had an issue with that when I'd serve, like my head would tend to duck. And so for me, it was always just to try to keep your head up like as long as you can, which helped my serve. And so that was the thing that I would think about serving. Returning, it was always like, just keep your head still, like on either side. And then I'd have like a direction in the back of my mind. So I wasn't thinking about the score. I wasn't thinking about being down. And then when the rally starts, everything kind of happens organically, and you can't, like, you're not thinking it. You just, it's nothing to think that it's like there's some solution that I'm not getting. I just kind of brought it back to everything was about the process.
So you're basically saying that you focused on your performance like at a micro level, and then as you chipped away, that's how you end up coming back.
Yeah, that's right. And it is, and that's the thing, tennis can happen so quickly. Like, you can be down 2 love, but then in a matter of 5 minutes, it can be 2 all. Like, It's not like if you can mentally get yourself to the point that you're not trying to you know, climb back up the hill, and climbing back up the hill is like too hard.
Yeah.
Just things can happen quick, and before you know it, because I don't know, from memory, I think I went up. I think I was down 2-love, and then I kind of got it back to 4-2 or something like that. I know there was a lot of long games in the middle of that third set, but I don't know. I think the defining thing for me was that after I'd won, I couldn't believe it. Like, because mentally, I just wouldn't let myself go there.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. Yep.
Like I've seen photos where, like, my face, like, you know, I'm kind of classic. My face is kind of resting. I'm like, I can't believe it.
Yeah, exhausted.
It was just, and I tried to find Leslie, like she was up in the crowd, and I tried to find Rich, like, you know, impossible to find in, you know, like a 12,000 people stadium. But because I was just so overwhelmed, and I think part of it was relief. Like, oh, I'm so relieved, you know, because I had the highest expectation for myself going. Anything other than a gold medal to me, like, would have been a fail. And, you know, I just didn't want to mentally just kind of, you know, go there.
It's such a skill, because it's so hard for people to look at the score and not let the score affect their emotions. And it's just, that's such an epic comeback. I'd love to, you know, for a gold medal match, to not allow that, like, to almost disappointment to start to set in, and that to affect your attitude towards the match. So it's just, when you say, like, process orientated and there is no secrets, that's huge, because people who are going to watch this, they're probably listening for something that is, you know, like a trick, or they're looking for something that you do differently. And for you just to bring it down to the smallest level and say, look, I was focusing literally on my serve, on my return. I mean, I think that's really helpful. So,
yeah. Well, I think the other thing too was that, remember I talked about, like, the 7 years between knowing it's going to happen and then getting to, like, I know Rich would say, can you push the wheelchair for a couple of kilometers to the end of my street? He used to live on Willow Creek Drive, and I'd push and I'd have the music, like, in, you know, my Walkman, back in the Walkman days.
Yeah.
And I'd see the Rocky Mountains off in the distance, and man, the music would kind of make me emotional, and I'd be pushing, and I'd look over to the Rocky Mountains, and that was when I'd picture myself winning the gold medal, because that was motivating to push harder.
Yep.
And then I remembered I'd get, like, a bit teary-eyed, and I'd just be training. But the Rocky Mountains, the music, the fresh air, like, thinking about, you know, being up there as a gold medalist, and that was really driving up until the point of when it could be like a negative. And it would have been negative if I'd gone out there on that first match with Andreas, you know, on the center court, and I was thinking about the gold medal.
Yeah.
So it's like, use it for training or however you want to use it up until the moment it's become a negative. And then just don't think about it.
Yeah, that's a good point, because there's no way you're thinking about a gold medal in the first match.
Yeah.
So I want to talk to you a little about your routine for your mental preparation before matches. What did you go through before your matches? How did you approach them?
Well, I was, it's interesting you say that. The Racquet Club of Irvine was, I guess it was probably about a kilometre push from the hotel. And so before matches, I would have the Walkman, and I'd put Slayer music in the water, and people would think, man, what are you doing? Like, you know, heavy metal, like, it's completely, it doesn't make sense that you're using this before a match.
Yeah.
But it used to really kind of center me, like it would really kind of put me into a calm state. And I used to do it alone. Then I'd push to the courts, listening to Slayer, warm up, And after I warmed up, leave me alone.
Okay.
Yeah, like I might talk to Rich for a bit, and then he'd be like, "Okay, I know you want to be left alone," so then I'd be left alone, and then I'd have the notes in my rack bag, so I'd just remind myself of what I needed to do for the match. So I'd read those, and that would mentally get me into a good frame of mind.
Yep.
And then that was pretty much it. Then just go out and play the match. So I did have like a process.
Yep.
To kind of work from, and that I did that for, oh man, like probably 10 years.
Yeah. That was probably a little bit of trial and error as you refined that process, would you say?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I mean, because there were times.
It's obviously working.
Well, when there was just no format to be left alone.
Yeah.
And so I know everything's different for different people. I know, like some people like to just kind of have people around them.
Yeah, yeah.
Relaxed and be social. Like I remember later on in my career that I would get really nervous before matches because, you know, it's weird. The older I got and the more successful I became, it almost felt like I was trying to protect something.
Yeah. So
for me, it was almost like trying to take everything just down to, you know, what we talked about, like only what you can control.
Yes.
And then kind of do it from that perspective. And so, yeah, it was interesting that I did have to adapt. You know,
yeah. So I heard an interview and you said something that was really interesting to me. You were just saying that sometimes that you would imagine the worst case scenario and accept that that's a possibility, and it sort of allowed you to move on instead of like letting the fear of that happening affect you.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's a good point. And that came from Michael Johnson's book, the track and field great. He had a book called Slaying the Dragon. And he would talk about if you mentally let yourself go to your worst possible scenario, which would be, I guess, as a tennis player, you know, I'm going to lose 6-1, 6-1. I'm going to hit a bunch of double faults, you know, play a lousy match. But I accept that.
Yes.
Accept that could happen. And you're not exactly comfortable with it.
Yeah, yeah.
But you have to let your mind go there, but then get rid of it.
Yep.
So you let your mind go there like 30 minutes before the match, but then 20 minutes before the match, you wipe it out of your mind.
Yep.
And then you just go back to your notes, like the process of what you want to do. Because mentally, when you go to worst case scenario, it does kind of free you up.
Yeah.
Like in a way.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, because then you feel like, okay, I can accept that. It would suck, like if it happened, but you know, I can accept that.
Yes, especially if somebody has a really deep-rooted fear of that happening, and it really affects them. Maybe that's something, the technique that they can use to try and maybe get it out of their system and just accept that it's a possibility, and you sort of, you almost detach from it after that a little bit.
Yeah, and like as you said, like it is interesting, but people will have their own kind of process, and what works for some might not work for others.
Yep.
So sometimes you got to kind of, you know, work it into your personality.
Yes.
And then once you find the right thing or the right tools to use, like leading up, because Joel, you'd know this. So many people lose matches because of, you know, and like they might be the better player.
Yeah.
They might have the better technique, but it's just that their mind kind of gets in the way.
Yes.
And if you feel like you can get your mind out of the way and kind of use it for you instead of against you, the amount of matches I won because I just kept hanging around mentally. Like there's no way to do a statistical analysis.
Yes,
But it'd be pretty interesting if you could.
Yeah.
Like just do that. And why did I win that match? You know, was it because like my technique was better, or I just didn't let things bother me?
Yeah.
like it'd be interesting to find out.
Oh yeah, definitely. And there's no better feeling than when you know when you know your opponent thinks it's not their day today. When you know you've got them, there's no better feeling. You relax as an opponent of that player. You relax, you free up. So you don't want to be that person on the other side of the net.
Yeah, that's true. And I think the other thing too is that, like, if you see signs of that happening, that the other guy is starting to crack, then you don't get too ahead of yourself mentally.
Yes. Yep.
That you don't think, oh, I've got him, I'm up 5-2, and then all of a sudden it's 5-all. Like, because at 5-2, you've been thinking about how big that winner's check is. Or,
Yeah.
Your whole
100%.
So that's another thing, that even if you see the guy cracking,
Yes.
you stay in your
zone. Sure.
Yeah.
Same with an injury. If that's some of the most dangerous players that sustain an injury in the match, because then they've got nothing to lose. Maybe you play too tight. So that's been my experience with that as well.
Yeah, exactly.
So what's your greatest tennis memory?
Oh, definitely winning the gold.
The gold.
Like, actually, I thought you might be interested, but I actually got it.
Oh, yes. Where do you keep it? That's awesome. Look at that. That is awesome.
The Harbour Bridge.
Yep.
In the opera. Pretty heavy, you could imagine.
I can imagine.
But it's funny because it's been living in my sock drawer. And, I mean, you think, how does a guy with no feet? What's he need socks for? But my stumps get cold at night.
Put some moccasins on them.
Roscoe when you need him.
Yeah.
But
it's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, it's all the blood, sacrifice, sweat, pain.
Yeah.
To that guy, because when you're up there on the metal dais and you still can't believe it, because you actually did it. Like you've been thinking about it for 7 years, but then knowing you did it, that's winning.
That's awesome.
And you just want that feeling over again. That's how we talked about it before.
Sure, yeah.
Craving, because there's nothing better in the world than when you've got this guy like around your neck.
Yep. And you've got it forever. That's like it's history books right there.
Yeah. Even though he's living in my sock drawer.
That's awesome.
I'm not sure he's happy about, really.
Yeah, I was thinking you might have a display or something going on.
Yeah,
I'd be tempted to just wear it around my neck all the time.
Oh, just go down the shopping centre?
Yeah, just go to the shops. Yeah, you don't need ID. You just flash the gold medal. You'd probably have to get a dummy, though. You wouldn't be able to walk around the streets with a real gold medal around your neck. That's a bit dangerous.
Because after I won, like you kind of do the media and all that kind of stuff, and then I guess some officials wanted me to go out, like out of the stadium, like to where the public was, and so which can be a bit dangerous. So all the people started like because they wanted a photo.
Yep.
With the medal.
Someone could snatch it. You don't know. Yeah.
But people were like they wanted to wear it.
You can't wear it. Yeah, easy.
You can just run off with this thing and then.
Sure.
So it was kind of interesting. There was kind of a bit of chaos around that, but I didn't really. I think I took it to a couple of schools, which was always kind of a hit after that.
Oh yeah.
But, I should probably take him out of the sock drawer more often.
Yeah, for sure. He's very lonely in there. Well, you got some silvers and bronzes as well, so I'm sure. Yeah. Are they all in there as well?
I mean, they're in with the singlets, so you know
they don't get the attention.
that.
My next question is, where do you see wheelchair tennis and the sport going in the next 10 to 20 years?
Well, you know, obviously since wheelchair tennis got into the Grand Slams, like, you know, the profile of it did raise a level. So I think it'll just continually do that. But I think there was a period, I don't know if this is still true, but that the grassroots kind of left behind a little bit. And I think a lot of the local tournaments kind of suffered. Maybe the numbers coming into the sport suffered as well. Look, I think at the top end, it's great. You know, it's in the slams and has more attention and whatnot.
Yeah.
But I think, you know, we all know that a sport is only really as strong, like, as its base.
Yes.
So I think there was kind of a time period there, you know, when Brad Parks and Randy and like all the American guys, I mean, it was just taking off like a wave, you know, around America, hit Europe, hit Japan, hit Australia. Like I know Nuke bought out Brad Parks and another, I think Jeff was the other wheelchair tennis player, and they did exhibitions. I don't know if you remember the Sydney Entertainment Centre, they used to have that tournament.
Oh, yeah.
It was kind of late 80s. And so Brad did an exhibition during that indoor tournament that was live on TV. And so that brought like a lot of players, you know, into the sport as well. So I think that initial wave of people coming into it definitely grew, like through the 90s and 2000s, and, you know, maybe it's kind of leveled off or dipped. I'm not sure. You know, I don't know the numbers, but I think, yeah, grassroots and that kind of base level is something that needs to be continually focused on.
Yeah, definitely. That's how you grow the game, keeping people interested in it. So what did being inducted in the Tennis Hall of Fame and the Australian Hall of Fame mean to you? That's got to be just an unbelievable experience.
Yeah, you never think it. Like, you never think it's possible, you know, and then you get like the phone call and then the process starts of, you know, what you need to do. And I remember getting the phone call from Tennis Australia that we're going to induct you and that we're going to make a bronze head of you.
Yes.
Like, to live out in Garden Square.
Garden Square, yeah.
Yeah, man. And so the sculptor who made my head, like, you don't hear that sentence very often, do you?
No.
She rang me and she said, Dave, can you take photos of your head, like of, you know, the Earth moving around the sun? And I need all these different angles, and then send me the photos, and that's how I'll build your head. And she calls me back after I send her the photos, and she says, oh, David, your head with the cheekbones and the bump and the dents, you look like an alien. I have so much fun with you, you know. I was like such a character. And we were laughing. So months later, get to the Australian Open on centre court, night match. I think Venus was just about to walk out there and play. And I see my bronze head under a black cloth, like out at the baseline on a stand. And the whole crowd is there, like Rod Laver's there, Kenny Rosewall, Dawn Fraser, Karen Perkins, like a lot of greats of Australian sport. And so during the ceremony, pull the cloth, and here's my bronze head. And Barbara, man, she got every cheekbone, she got every bump.
Yes.
Right. And it's a weird feeling to be looking like at your own
head.
And I remember during the speech, like obviously tearing up, and that was just so emotional. But apparently there's a spider living near me out in Garden Square, because whenever anyone goes to visit, my bronze head, spider webs all over it. I don't know what's going on, but I know, like with Newport, the International Tennis Hall of Fame, like the whole process starts of doing it, and then like they were great because they said when we induct you, we're going to put your items like in the museum, state of the art museum,
Yep.
Unbelievable. And they said, "Oh, can you send us, some stuff that might just reflect your personality like a bit?" And so I thought, man, the Slayer
album.
like, this is great. And so I send the Slayer tapes, and then we get to the Hall of Fame in the museum, and I see them like underneath the glass, and I'm like, this is surreal. Like it's and then I sent them, Glenn, a buddy of mine, gave me this toy frog, and her name was Martina Hopalova. and he gave it to me for good luck. And so I carried around Martina for like 10 years, like in my racket bag. And Martina's got more frequent flyer miles than
Don't tell me she's in the Tennis Hall of Fame.
Yeah. So I said, yeah. And then, so Martina's underneath the glass, and she's cross-eyed, she's green, this dress on.
That's awesome.
And a museum staffer comes up to me and she says, "David, Martina is one of the most popular items in this museum. You want to know why?" And I was like, "No." And she says, "Because every night before closing, I've got to clean all the fingerprint marks off the glass because all the young kids, want to touch Martina Hopalova and like take her home."
That's awesome.
Oh man, this is great.
Man, I've got to say, I used to walk past Garden Square all the time. I used to look at all the bronze heads, and it was a much better job done with yours than some of the early busts. So I remember some of them. They were pretty rough.
Yeah.
We've got about sorry to cut you off. We've got about a minute to go before it'll kick us off. So before we wrapped up, I just want to say thank you so much for giving me your time. You're a legend of the sport. You're an inspiration, and anybody who is looking to get into wheelchair tennis, go to letsroll.com and look at David's website, or you can follow him here on his Instagram. But thank you, mate, so much. You're a legend. I was so happy to connect with you, and thanks, Jason, for hooking it up.
Man, no worries, Joel. You take care, brother.
Yeah, you're a legend, David. If you're in San Diego, mate, let me know.
All right, we'll go out for a beer.
Yeah, for sure. See you, David.
All right, mate.
Bye.
See ya.